Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide is true and accurate?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Ms. Ryan?
Good afternoon, Ms. Hirth. Are you the same Kerry Mulvania Hirth who filed direct testimony in this docket on July 24th of this year?
Yes, I am.
And if I asked you those questions today, would you give substantially the same answers?
Yes, I would, with one correction.
What correction would you like to make?
That has to do with the contents and the location of the One Oak North System pipeline.
And I believe you referenced that at the bottom of page 2 and top of page 3 of your testimony.
Yes.
What would you like to correct about that statement?
The location and the contents of the pipeline.
Yep. Go ahead and tell us what it should be.
The pipeline, actually, when I wrote the testimony, I was unaware of this. It's kind of hard to figure out all of a sudden, what's underneath the soil. But this pipeline was originally, I believe, granted as an easement to Enron in 1969. It was taken over by the One Oak North System. One Oak is a company that has pipelines with natural gas liquid in them, and I assumed that that was what was in the pipeline. But there actually are 3 substances that go through the pipeline underneath the property: gasoline, diesel, and oil. And what happens is that it changes and a pig is forced through the pipe, and the kind of liquid that travels through it changes periodically. And the location of the pipeline, I do have a map which could indicate this, which I was unable to submit with my original testimony.
Is that map among the hearing exhibits?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get to that in a moment.
Sure.
Do you have any other corrections you need to make to your testimony?
No, I do not.
Okay. Your Honor, I move admission of Kerry Mulvania Hirth's direct testimony.
Are there objections? Seeing no objections, the board will admit and give the weight due.
Ms. Hirth, did you also file on Monday, September 18th, hearing exhibits 1 through 43 and an index to those exhibits?
Yes, I did.
Would you give a brief description of what those exhibits are?
Those exhibits are aerial maps of the property, an aerial map of the North System pipeline location, and photographs of the exit and the entry, proposed, I believe, entry of the Summit pipe onto the land, and pictures of conditions on the land that are relevant to the risk and the expense and the compromise to the land of the pipeline if it were to be installed.
Your Honor, I would move the admission of Ms. Hirth's hearing exhibits 1 through 43.
Are there objections?
Your Honor, only to the extent that, not to the content, to the extent that they were just filed 2 days ago and are pretty voluminous, and it puts us in a tough spot of whether to seek delay, which was prejudicial, or whether to muddle through. But we don't have an objection, near as I can tell, to the content. We just haven't had a lot of time to look at it.
Okay. I think that was an objection. Not 100% sure. That said, we'll admit and give the weight due.
Actually, when I originally filed my testimony, I had no idea what I was doing. Reads more like a moral statement. And after I was admitted as an intervener, I got questions submitted to me from the board of the kinds of things that are likely to be asked, like the location of other pipelines, or like conditions on the land that might be compromised by the pipeline. And so this is my best effort to provide that level of information. I think that, this is my best effort to provide information, and this decision is going to be forever. The easement would be forever, and I think maybe it will only take me a few minutes to get through the list of photographs.
Yes, that's an option if other parties or the board would like us to go through the photographs so she can describe them.
Sorry, Ms. Hirth, just to clarify, you have counsel, so everybody else that was up here today didn't have counsel, so that's why there was so much more interaction between us and them as we walked through it. We're going to depend on your counsel to walk you through and guide most of this.
Well, please instruct me and stop me if I
You're fine.
speak at the wrong moment.
I was just acknowledging you kept looking up here, so and we're looking to your counselor.
If it would be helpful to the board and the other parties, Ms. Hirth would be more than willing to walk through and give a brief description of each individual photograph in the exhibits.
Okay. The other parties at this point aren't seeking for any foundation, so let's go into cross, see where that takes us, and we can address that as we go forward.
Might I ask one last thing? With reference to the location of the One Oak pipeline on the property that she indicated needed to be changed from her direct testimony, Ms. Hirth, could you indicate which exhibit that location would be found on?
The best way to see that would be to look at the aerial map of crop and pasture and the One Oak North System pipeline location.
Thank you. With that, Your Honor, I would tender the witness for cross-examination.
Thank you. And before we do that, just for all the parties' benefit, we will be referring to those as Hirth hearing exhibits 1 through 43. Okay. If there's no questions from the party, if there are questions, Mr. Taylor?
First again. Ms. Hirth, why did you submit these additional exhibits?
Because at the time I filed my original testimony, I didn't know what a utilities board hearing was. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know what I needed to do to be able to represent the farm. And I wasn't equipped to provide the maps and to point out where the pipeline was going to be and the tile line and the height of the terraces. These things I didn't understand what kind of information I needed to provide the board so that they could make a good decision.
Okay. May we see her KMZ map? That was quick. Does this look like your property, and that vertical white line in the middle would be the pipeline route?
Right, those are 6 parcels, and there are 3 affected parcels in my father's property. And this is actually the first time that I have seen a map of the entire pipeline and the way that it bisects the property, because when the information came out from Summit, it came out parcel by parcel, and you could only see 1 parcel in each, and you would kind of almost have to cut the paper to be able to fit them together. So, but I could from the farmer and to go around the property in an all-terrain vehicle and point out roughly where we think that the pipeline would be.
Okay. Well, just so I'm clear, do you own the property, or does your father, or do you own it together, or what?
Oh, my father owns the property. I petitioned as intervenor as an heir to the property.
I see. Okay. And so your exhibits 1 through, was it 33, are aerial photos of sections of what we're seeing on the KMZ map?
Yes, you're seeing 6 parcels, 3 affected parcels.
Okay.
So my father is an 83-year-old man, and he's extremely intelligent, but it would probably take him longer to walk up here than you want to hear from me. And also, I don't think that he has the stamina for a hearing like this to be able to be here. I think I've seen a lot of people here who have tried to decide, which member of their family is going to represent a piece of property, And some people are capable of expressing themselves and some people are not. But I'm here because that the board needs to hear about the conditions of the land to make a good decision about what to do, and this is the information that I have.
Okay. So what specific issues do you have with, or does your father have with the pipeline being on this land?
Objection, Your
State
Honor.
your objection.
I have a couple. I mean, my understanding from the board's ruling yesterday is that we were going to have some limits on friendly cross that is in fact just supplemental direct. This sort of broad, what are your family's concerns, are clearly just an opportunity to add supplemental direct. And things like, having the KMZ and working off the KMZ is already in evidence. Ms. Hirth's 1 through 43 exhibits, pictures are already in evidence. This just is not cross-examination.
Mr. Taylor.
I think this is the kind of evidence that we've been talking about all day today. I'm just trying to clarify her written testimony. In fact, she has counsel. Maybe Ms. Ryan should be doing the defense of this testimony rather than me.
But that's the point. There's nothing to defend. Nobody has actually, no adverse party has crossed her on this testimony. Mr. Taylor makes my point exactly.
Ms. Ryan, I believe you have your mic up.
Thank you. I for interest of hearing from Ms. Hirth's counsel, I do agree with Summit that was a very broad question. However, I have to disagree to the extent that this is, in general, this is friendly cross-examination. However, I do think it would be appropriate for Mr. Taylor to limit the question a little more.
I think, Mr. Taylor, if you want to proceed with questions that are more appropriate cross-examination questions, perhaps.
In your written testimony, you mentioned certain tactics by the land agents for Summit in contacting your father. Can you clarify what those were?
Oh, yes. I think it was about little over maybe even 2 years before now. Calls came in to my father from Texas and Michigan, and they were all offers to for Summit to purchase an easement on the farm. They were definitely pests about it. Sometimes he would get 3 calls a week. The farm is managed by Farmers National and has been in management by Farmers National for 60 years. And he finally had to tell Farmers National, please make sure that they stop calling me because there's nothing that they can offer me that I will ever accept for this project.
And how many times did land agents try to contact your father?
Well, I don't know the exact number, but 3 times a week for, I don't know. They contacted him persistently since from 2 years ago up until the point where he was able to communicate with Farmers National that they should not call anymore.
I believe also in your written testimony, you made the comment that the carbon capture and storage would have no effect on the climate change. Can you clarify what you meant by that?
Yes, I think that the effects of climate change are extremely harsh. In particular, in this area, they seem to be very severe floods and severe droughts. And the carbon capture from ethanol plants isn't going to impact those conditions whatsoever. it's not rational to think that it could possibly do that. It's not going to fix anything. It's going to store air underground that can be later used to make sure that petroleum wells can push oil out that more quickly and from deeper in the ground. There isn't another use for it that I know of right now.
Pardon?
I don't think there's another use for it. I'm not a scientist, however. To be clear, I'm an ordinary person who was forced into this situation, and who's tried to gather as much information as possible, you know, trying to pull together information from a farm in Iowa, you know, and talk to my broken-hearted and pestered father about this. You know, I mean, I'm doing my best up here, but you know, this pipeline certainly isn't going to remedy the conditions that Iowa is experiencing right now. I don't think it has any relationship to that. I think it's entirely about money. I can't think of another reason for this to even happen.
Did you have any contact yourself with any land agents or representatives of Summit?
No, I did not.
Okay. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Whippel?
Ms. Hirth, I was looking at some of your hearing exhibits. I see starting at exhibit 24
Yes.
and 25, 26.
Oh, yes, I can see them now. Thank you.
I guess I see a substantial number of Native American artifacts here, or what appear to be that. Are all of these found on the affected properties?
Yes, they are.
Have you or your father allowed Summit to survey the property?
Actually, my father does not live on the property. The farm operator did, and Summit did not have permission from anyone to go onto the property, and the operator did find them in two places. In Easter of this year, they were at the exit of the pipeline, which is on the Exhibit 7, 8, and 9, which is a big ditch with drainage from a road and also from one of the fields into it. It's a huge wet pit.
I guess the reason I asked that was,
Oh, sure.
Have you contacted the State Historic Preservation Office about the artifacts, and how close does the proposed pipeline route run to where the artifacts were found?
Well, some of them were found on the highest point of a knob in the property. So if you were to see the topographic map, they would be on the east side of the property at the highest point. However, not this page, but the second page of artifacts have been found around the area where the barn on the property is. But, you know, those are areas which have been tilled and exposed. And no one knew to contact anyone about these artifacts. The operator and his father found them in the fields over time, and they collected them because they were beautiful and unique, and no one knew the history of them.
So they've been collected from a number of different locations on the property?
Yes, exactly.
Over a long period of time?
Yes.
Not concentrated in any one place?
They are concentrated in two broad areas of the farm. One of them which is near the pipeline, and one of them which is uphill. But
would you be able to show us on the KMZ in relation to the pipeline?
Yeah, sure.
Where these areas where the artifacts were found?
Right. Okay, so this is actually these artifacts were not the
Ms.
the
Hirth, can
first
you use
page
the,
was in the okay.
can you
Okay.
use the, yeah, maybe use the pointer, but then while you're using the pointer, describe in words what you're pointing at. I know
Okay.
it's a little tricky. You're doing fine.
Okay. So the area in the southeast corner of the property, it's 6 parcels in the property.
And the 6, could you identify, we've got 3 in red,
Right.
and when you say 6, is it 2 additional to the right, the east, or to the west?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble working this. Right. Okay. And I'm not going to blind you, okay? Okay. This property is 6 parcels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Moving from the west side of the property to the east side. So there are 3 affected parcels in red, and the other 3 they are not within the red area. I don't know what necessarily affected means, because that this land is it's easily erodible, and the terrain on it is very high. Some of the terraces are steep, up to 10 or maybe even over 10 feet tall.
So
But the area where the artifacts were found are right here, here.
in the southeasternmost
Yes, right there.
of the parcels.
And then right here in this area, right here. So
just to the west of
Right.
the
right.
proposed pipeline location.
Yes. And honestly, it's really hard to tell what would happen with a pipeline going through there, because this is actually a huge ravine. The exhibits, where is it? The sandstone embankment 17 would show that there's a huge embankment. So everything in the property has a tendency to wash down to this area.
So the person who farms it, is he a tenant farmer?
Yes, he is. The farm is managed by Farmers National Company. It has been for 60 years, and he is the operator. He is the person who has reported to me about the conditions of the land. I went to visit him to make sure that I knew exactly how to protect him, because it's his life. I'm not just here for me, it's his life, that is at stake here. So I made sure that I talked to him about the things that were valuable to him. In addition to the artifacts that have been found, there are actually carvings, some of which date to the 1800s, in the middle of the area where the pipeline bends. If you can see the...
Well, let me stop you there.
Sure, sorry.
Let's have...
Maybe I'm not directly answering your question.
You're raising more questions in my mind as you talk, and so I kind of want to just stop and dwell on a couple things for a moment.
Yes.
The tenant farmer found the artifacts.
Yes, he did.
Okay. And
the tenant farmer, I asked the tenant farmer, his father additionally has found artifacts for a very long period of time there. He's not the only one. He's the one who reported to me and showed me his collection, but his father, now deceased, had a collection as well.
And did the tenant farmer let the surveyors know when they were on site?
Oh. No, the surveyors just showed up without any permission. They showed up in the very top where the pipeline moves out, right? And then he saw them at the exit of the pipeline, the entrance to the pipeline, and also in the middle of the ravine. And they were not welcome there. He did not know that they were going to come. They showed up on Easter and they frightened his cows. They were not welcome.
And so there also would not have been, I'm assuming, an opportunity to let the surveyors know where carvings were found. You said there were carvings found?
No, they showed up. They didn't care. They were just going to come in there and do whatever they were going to do without asking. There was no chance.
So can you point out where the carvings are? You said they're in the ravine?
Yeah. So in this picture, right there in the flat part right here, see right where the pipe bends? It's a deep part of it.
Have you ever had an archaeologist or a historian come and view the carvings?
No, it was just a special feature of the land to, like, his family and our family. It wasn't something that we, it wasn't something that we knew. We knew that it was important and we knew that they were there. In fact, we used to, with my grandfather, visit every year, and even at that time, my younger brother was told about the existence of these. So
the point is, the pipeline company and the State Historic Preservation Office don't really know what's been found there and the location of it at this time. Is that right?
No, they do not. They do not. And
but it's possible, or at least
it's highly likely.
Because there are carvings.
Yes.
Are you afraid there's the potential for human remains nearby? Have you ever found any human remains?
No human remains have been found on the farm. I do not know if there are human remains there, but I do know that the farm has been inhabited for a very long time by people. There's a long-standing occupation of the land, and those are things that we do not understand.
I think that's all I have, Your Honor.
Mr. Jorde?
Yes, on the KMZ here, did you say these terraces are approximately 10 feet or more high?
Yes, the terraces at the beginning of the pipeline, at the far south entrance of the pipeline, yes, they are extremely tall. The terrain is different than the northern farms here, and they're quite high.
So I can see there's several terraces, like 3 or 4 more in certain areas. What would you estimate the elevation from the high point to the kind of the bottom there where the proposed pipeline would bend?
I believe that the height change in the farm is over 100 feet. The topographical map would show that from the top highest point in the farm to the lowest point in the farm would be over 100 feet.
The area where the proposed pipeline would bend, are you aware if that's ever been a waterway or a creek or a stream of any kind historically?
Well, actually, it's the farm creek is on the east side of the property, but this feature of the land has always been called the creek, and it always has water in it, and the water comes in from the north west side of the property, and you can see, like right here, there's a little overpass there that's had to been built to get for the operator to have access to the full farm, and it always washes out there. There's been a creek there forever. It does not have a name, but it's a small creek that is continually full of water.
And then where do the cattle graze, or where are they able to graze when they're out in the pasture areas?
Yes, you can see here in the right near the exit of the pipeline, all the way down to the bottom southwest corner of the first parcel, down through the area where the creek flows, and then the cattle eat grass that grows. There are small light paths that go in between the terraces, and sometimes they go there to eat grass.
Is that area fenced off, or does the elevation kind of keep the cattle concentrated in that area?
Right. Well, when it flattens out, which is like right about here,
In the middle?
there's a fence. Yeah, it's a very solid fence that is barbed wire, and it's electrified as well. But there's a fence that the pipeline would cross. I believe that it would cross, because when we were checking out the land, like I said, this is the first time that I've ever fully been able to connect this together. The maps that we got had basically no information on them, and they would come out one parcel, and you can see that 3 are affected here. The first one on the southwest side, there's a small part of it, and then there's a very small part of the next one, and then there's the along the western border of this central parcel. They were all separate, but the pipeline goes through a very deep ravine, and it crosses a fence that contains cattle, and there are 80 cows. It's a cow calf operation that the operator has as his own responsibility, and there are 80 of them that graze when he lets them. In this field here is alfalfa that he grows to feed them.
And who lives in that home that's shown in the northwest corner of the, we'll call it the first of your 6 parcels there?
This is the operator, and yeah, I'm gonna get it closer. Okay, so this is a machine shed right here. Here's an area where his combines and other implements are parked. This is a house. The house was a Sears and Roebuck house built in 1929, and behind the house there's I'll just go over it, a potential location for another machine shed for the farmer. This is a very small bin, which is not sufficient storage for what the farm produces. It's small, and then there is an older barn here, but it protects the cows and calves when they calve. And then this area here, it's become eroded as a result of the cattle, but they live there, and that's where they are provided with their food.
Does the farmer who lives in that home have a family, a spouse, and children?
The farmer lives there with his wife, and they're together. Their children do not live there. Right next to the house, those are over 100-year-old oak trees that his great-grandmother planted. And this house itself, the pipeline is going to come out over here. So, if a section is a mile and then there are 3 parcels here, this may be like 1,000 feet away from the house and the barn, and there are cows all over. So, it's pretty close to like the heart of his home and everything that he owns and everything that's required to make the farm productive.
And do you have any idea how close the nearest fire department is located from this home?
Well, the operator actually volunteers, but in order to access anything, I believe that they need to go to Red Oak, which is 8 miles directly south of the house and 9 miles directly east.
Okay.
So
approximately
it would take
17 miles.
right away to Red Oak. So.
And just to confirm, you said the surveyor showed up on Easter. Was that this Easter or last year?
He said it was this year. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and no permission was given as far as you're aware?
No, he came out. He said that he came out and asked them what they were doing.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Ms. Hike, and I apologize if I've been pronouncing that wrong for 5 weeks. Go ahead.
Hello, Ms. Hirth. Could you tell me what sort of interactions have you had with Summit? Have you received mailers? Have you gone to informational meetings?
No, actually, my father and I live in Missouri, and we've come up here for the farm and the operator. So my father has contact with Summit, and I do not.
So did you receive any mailings, or did he then?
No, actually, it's interesting. I think it was about 2 years ago. The only reason that I even found out that there was something going on is because that a woman named Jan Norris in Montgomery County wrote a letter, hand-addressed letter that came to my father, and it had pictures of damage that other kinds of pipeline had done to the land. And she says, this is happening. And so I said, my dad showed me the letter. I'm like, well, this is pretty important. And meanwhile, after that, he just kept getting calls from Summit. I mean, it was impossible to get the kind of information that you needed to be able to protect yourself. The only reason that I was able to even know about whether I could intervene was from the Sierra Club. And I only knew about them, again, from Jan Norris in Montgomery County, from neighbors in Montgomery County that contacted me who are actually unable to advocate for themselves. So, yeah, there wasn't information. In fact, it was hard to get information from the utilities board about what to do. Maybe because that I was in some respects tangential to this, but in looking at what has happened to my father, the first communication that I know that came directly from the utilities board was a cardboard folio that said, please participate in this eminent domain hearing. Exhibit H landowners are affected. And to me, the word Exhibit H, I didn't know what that meant, and I never even actually saw an Exhibit H until my father gave me a packet that came from Summit I guess it arrived by certified mail on the 22nd of July, and I opened it up, and here is an Exhibit H, which, is just of Montgomery County, and you've seen these before. They're quite small. They're almost impossible to interpret. I had to take off my glasses to be able to see it. Plus, everything comes parcel by parcel, so there's no way to actually fully connect these together. So it's extremely difficult to find out what to do. And the contact from Summit has been either a, high pressure sales call, or just this, piecemeal information about what it is that they plan. And So, and fully also as well, it was hard to figure out how to participate in the hearing. So that has been my experience with Summit, though I've not had direct contact. That is my direct observation of how my father has been treated.
Have the efforts you've been forced to undertake as a result of Summit's proposal had a negative impact on your father's well-being?
Yes, actually, at the time that we got the letter from Jan Norris, my mother had just died of breast cancer. Okay, so, all of this just, happened upon us. We just, woke up one day and they're like, by the way, there's going to be a pipeline through your property. And granted, there's one that Enron happened to build in 69. That happens to be carry 3 different fluids, and they happen to build a safe pipeline. But the fact that they happen to have done that, has no bearing, that it happened to be safe, at least until now, on a pipeline that we don't fully know what size it's actually going to be. On the safety of that, there isn't even a federal regulatory apparatus to assess the safety of something like that. The information we got from Summit said that it was going to be a 6-inch trunk line because they included in their mailing an Exhibit A from the Iowa Utilities Board, and it said that it was a 6-inch trunk line. But the easement that is attached to that, that came with the envelope, it's a punitive easement that does nothing to restrict the rights of Summit to, it literally says that the pipe can be 24 inches wide, right? And, we are depending on the protection of the Iowa Utilities Board to limit that to 6 inches. If this hypothetically goes through, we are basically at the mercy of a process that has been extremely difficult to understand and very difficult to participate in. I think there are a lot of factors that went into that. Because this is a situation where there are hundreds of different individual interests, but by and large, that's been the experience of doing this. I'm on my 4th day of my paid vacation that I took off of my job to be here. Lucky that they're still going to pay me. I'm here because I care, and the operator needs our protection for his life. And this shouldn't happen. You don't just wake up one morning and have this happen, It shouldn't be that way.
Did Summit provide you with any paperwork discussing any of the warnings and risks and safety information regarding this pipeline on your property?
Not me personally, and if you want to figure out what's going on here, you have to piece together a great deal of information, and I understand that there's a huge risk with hazardous liquid pipeline. That is literally why it's called a hazardous liquid pipeline, because it's a hazard to people. And in this case, it can kill lots of people at once. And I have no way, to fully assess the safety of this. And in fact, I don't think that the federal government has even done that. I would really like to see what would happen to the northwest corner of the farm where the operator lives. I want to know that, and most certainly he wants to know that, and he, for however things are set up, it can't be here to defend himself either. And I would like to know that. And I don't think that's been made public, you know? And also, I don't think that the investments have been made public as well. I mean, I think that my level of humility has been perhaps misrepresented by the media. I come here out of humility to plead for his life, you know, and to plead for the history of the farm and its unique features, you know, but I haven't seen something that you know, remotely resembles any kind of assurance of safety from Summit about this project.
Does it concern you that Summit has never built, operated, or maintained the pipeline prior to this?
Yeah, I mean, exactly, absolutely. I mean, the fact that a company such as Enron managed to build a safe, so far, pipeline, you know, like, this is unprecedented. You know, there's not evidence out there to figure out what's going to happen. I mean, I can tell you that this pipeline is going to cross one that is also a hazardous liquid pipeline. I mean, that in and of itself should increase the risk of doing this. I mean, and frankly, you know, having an 100 topographical map, like, why would you cross a property with an 100-foot drop with a ravine in it? You know, why would you cross that when Highway 59 is just, 2 miles maybe on the other side of it, and it's a straight stretch? Like, why go through all of the trouble to do this, to tear up this land, to tear up this precious property? Why go to the trouble of doing that when you could actually have a straight line? And wouldn't they be compensating the state of Iowa, the whole people, and not just, you know, there should be other ways to do this than taking parcels of land and going through these great lengths. I'm not sure. I don't know how an assurance of safety over a 2,000-mile pipeline that crosses multiple states can ever be made. And it hasn't been made, in my opinion. I am one human, but I believe that there are a lot of other humans that believe it hasn't been made.
My final question, about your land, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, the land, like all the other land that's been described here, is precious, and it's worth more than money. And all I see out of this project is a handful of ultra-rich investors, you know, getting compensated. You know, I don't think that there's any rationality behind this, and I also think that it is morally a questionable project, given the immense value of the land to the people, and given the fact that this would be forever. 100 years from now, you know, who knows what Summit is going to want to flush through that easement, and I don't see any limit in the easement that prevents them from selling it to someone, or perhaps even enlarging it. In addition to scientifically and financially questionable, I think it's also morally questionable.
Thank you.
More questions? Okay. Seeing no more questions, Ms. Ryan, redirect.
I just have one follow-up question. You've talked a number of times about the operator who lives on the farm. And
Yes.
when we were looking at the map, you pointed out the oak trees that his great-grandmother planted. How many generations has his family been farming that land?
Well, actually, we have a common ancestor, Robert Stewart, who I think it was would have been 73, bought the property. I think it's 150 years old this year. And we do have a common ancestor, and his great-grandmother was my grandfather's aunt. So, we're related, but I mean, he is the person, over time, my family and my relatives, but he is the immediate person who is pouring out his soul into that property right now. And he is valuable, and he has been there through the presence of our family for 150 years this year. The Farm Creek Cemetery is up the hill, and I've actually included pictures in my testimony of the gravestones of his parents and of Robert Stewart, my great-great-grandfather.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Hirth? Ms. Hirth, you can step down.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Let me get my water.
There you go. Ms. Ryan?
Oh, sorry. That concludes Ms. Hirth's witnesses for today.
Okay, thank you. 1 second. Ms. Colas?